So over the weekend, Abby Martin reached out to me, and she told me that her husband, Mike Preisner, did a podcast recently with somebody who was a prisoner at Guantanamo Bay. And this really is a bombshell story here, because apparently this guy was tortured, and the person who oversaw the torture and actually played a chief role in facilitating it was a guy by the name of Ron DeSanctimonious. Ronnie D. DeSantis, the rising Republican star, is apparently, and I love this, this is crazy, already a war criminal, even though he hasn't even had an executive position yet in the federal government. I don't even know how you pull that off, but apparently he pulled that off. So let's listen to this excerpt from Mike Preisner's podcast, and you'll get all of the gory specifics of what went down with Ron DeSantis overlooking it.
As you know, Guantanamo, Mike, it was created out of the legal zone, out of the legal system, out of the humanity base. Torture was the mechanism of Guantanamo. Torture, abuse, and experimenting on prisoners at Guantanamo. We went on a massive hunger strike in 2005, and was like over 500 prisoners participated in the hunger strike. And that time, the only way to calm us down were they told us, okay, we are going to talk to listen to your need. We believed them that they would negotiate and talk to us. And we told them that's what we need, But it was a trap, basically. It was a trap. I mean, everything turned upside down. So we went again on hunger strike. We were on force feeding. It was torture. We were bleeding all the time. And I saw a fucking handsome person who was coming. He said, I'm here to ensure that you're treating humanely. And we said, okay, this is our demand. We were not asking for much, At the beginning, he was just...
It was Ron DeSantis.
Yes, exactly. The person.
He said, I'm here to ensure you're being treated humanely.
Yes, exactly. And if you have any problems, if you have any concerns, just talk to me. And, we were drowning in that place. I'm like, oh, this is cool. That person actually writing something, he will raise the concerns, but it was piece of the game. What they were doing, they were looking what's hurt you more to use it against you. By the end of 2005, 2006, when he was there, one of the worst time at Guantanamo, literally. And they cracked on us so hard when they came to break our hunger strike, when we went again on force feeding. I swear by my God, Mike, they brought, piles of ensure, and they start force feeding us over and over again. And Ron DeSantis was there and watching us. We were crying, screaming. We were tied to the feeding chair, and that guy, he was watching that, he was laughing, basically. It was hurt like hell. And I was screaming, like, when I was screaming, I look at him, and he was actually smiling, like, as someone who enjoying it. When they used to feed us, because our stomach cannot hold this amount of ensure. They used to pour ensure one can after another. So when he approached me, I said, this is the way we are treated. He said, you should start to eat. I threw up in his face, literally on his face.
Ron DeSantis.
In his face, yeah. They used to, restrain us in the feeding chair, which like 8 point. They tied our heads, our shoulder, our wrist, our thighs, and our legs. And they came, and that was really thick tube, they call it French 17 or something, through our nose. And they keep doing this over and over again, and they put some kind laxative in the feeding liquid, with like we shit in ourselves all the time. Then we would be moved to a solitary confinement, really cold cells. If we throw up, and we used to get fed like 5 times a day. It wasn't feeding, it was torture. So we couldn't handle it for 5 or 5 days. We couldn't, because 5 times a day, you can't. You cannot possibly handle it, because they just kept pouring the ensure. And in 1 week, they break all the hunger strikers. In 1 week, totally. It was a mission. And he was there. And not just that, they used to also beat us. And if we scream or pain, bleeding came out on our nose and mouth, they would like, eat. The only word they told you, eat, eat, eat. We were beating all day long, all day. There's a team. Whatever you do, they just beat you. pepper spray, beating, sleep deprivation. That continued for 3 months. And he was there because at the beginning, he told us that he was there to ensure we are treated humanely. And if we have concern or issues, he will take it. But he's one of the people who actually supervised the torture, the abuse, the beating all the time at Guantanamo.
So you're saying that DeSantis initially, because he presented himself as the lawyer whose job it was to ensure you're being treated humanely, then you and other detainees told him the things that were the hardest for you to deal with, the things that you felt needed to change. And then instead of actually making sure those things changed and that your human rights are respected, he then basically was gathering intelligence to then tell the prison camp and the interrogators what it was that was impacting you most so they could do it more to you.
Exactly. That what happened there, because the things we used to tell them, it turned against us. Everything we talked to him become multiple because he was looking at the impact on you, what hurt you more. Ron DeSantis was there all the time because his job to walk around and talk to prisoners. Like, I'm here to ensure you're being treated humanely. I'm telling Americans, if this is humanity, this guy is torture, is a criminal.
So, look, after hearing the story, it's even stronger than what the initial claim is. Ron DeSantis is a torturer. That's what he is. So, his job, as described, is let me pretend to be the lawyer who's here to help you and treat you more humanely, and everything that you tell me hurts you the most, we're going to do more of that. I'm going to sit there, watch it, and laugh at it. And the descriptions are stunning as to what went down. So they were on a hunger strike to get some basic changes, and they would force feed them Ensure until their stomachs couldn't handle it anymore. They would literally, just pump them full of Ensure. They would also put laxatives in there. So force feed you until your stomach's about to fucking pop, and then you're shitting yourself on a cold cell floor. By the way, we know from previous reporting that there were people who actually died in those cold cells. That was one of the things they do, is they'd lock you in a cold cell overnight. And then one time they came back and somebody was dead in the morning. The other thing that I feel like is an important thing to point out is a lot of people don't realize that the overwhelming majority of people who were kept in Guantanamo Bay were not guilty of any crime at all. In fact, I believe it was The Guardian. I don't know if they did the initial reporting, but I read it in The Guardian. The Bush administration had cut a deal with warlords in Pakistan and Afghanistan and said to them, hey, we were just attacked on 9/11. Can you please send us anybody who's, in Al-Qaeda, who's a terrorist or whatever? And then what happened is, because it turns out warlords in Pakistan and Afghanistan are not the most trustworthy people, they just went out and rounded up their own political enemies and then shipped them to the U.S. And so we had all of these people totally innocent of any wrongdoing in Guantanamo Bay. And there were a number of scandals around some of them. One guy was literally a German citizen by the name of Murat Kurnaz. I remember that because I think that was one of the first segments I ever did on the internet, was talking about this guy Murat Kurnaz, who was innocent of any wrongdoing, German citizen, and he was tortured. I think it was at Gitmo. Maybe Abu Ghraib, but I'm pretty sure it was Gitmo. And now we know Ron DeSantis, already a war criminal. Wow. Look, man, that's impressive. Gotta hand it to him. At least, Obama had to be president before he became a war criminal. Trump had to become president before he became a war criminal. Trump was a regular criminal, a financial criminal, a white-collar criminal, a fraudster. But he wasn't a war criminal until he went into the White House. Ron DeSantis, if he runs and if he wins, he will be a war criminal before ever stepping foot in the White House. That, ladies and gentlemen, is astonishing. The man oversaw torture, tricked people, got them tortured even worse, and sat there and laughed as they were force-fed and they were given laxatives and they were nearly about to die and shit on themselves in a cold cell. Wow. And I'm not surprised now that, again, this is the darling of the Republican Party. As Trump is slowly but surely, petering off, you got the rise of this guy DeSantis. And clearly there's already all the dirt in the world on him, because this stuff makes them like you more. You're a good steward of the empire. So, wow, what a story. Now let me ask you, how far and wide is this story gonna spread? Unfortunately, look, I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this full time since 2012. Usually, stories involving torture and war crimes, they're a dud. They don't get spread far and wide. Why? Because generally speaking, you don't have the mainstream outlets cover it. You know, you're not going to have CBS, ABC, NBC, MSNBC, CNN, even people who nominally don't like DeSantis because they're more propagandists for the Democratic Party than the Republican Party. Even they are probably not going to touch this. Look, I hope I'm wrong. I would love nothing more than to be dead wrong and that this story spreads far and wide. But unfortunately, I don't think it's gonna. So look, I'll ask you guys. You guys need to spread this stuff far and wide. Go share this tweet from Empire Files. Share from Mike Prisoner. If he put it out there, Abby Martin, whatever. Share this segment. Whatever you got to do, because this is something that needs to be heard. This dude is already a war criminal. Already a war criminal. That's astonishing. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.